Welcome. My name is Kate O'Connor, and I'm the chair of the Charter Revision Commission. And the first thing I want to do is have my fellow commission members introduce themselves. Start with Joy.
Hi, my name is Joy Turneau.
Hi, I'm Denise Glover.
Maya Hasagawa, I'm the vice chair.
Evening, I'm Peter Elwell.
I'm Hannah Clarice.
We want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to just give you a little bit of a primer on what we do and who we are, just in case people are coming for the first time and have no clue. This is the charter, and this very pretty orange thing here that you can also find on the town website. And what it is, it outlines how town government works. And in the charter, it says that the select board has to appoint a charter revision commission every 5 years. 15 years, thank you, to review the charter. So in December of 2022, we were appointed by the select board, and what we've been doing for the last 2 years now is going through the charter section by section. And that's what leads us here tonight to talk about specifically annual town meeting. We are not going to be the ultimate deciders of what happens to the charter. After we make our recommendations, it will go to either a representative town meeting vote or a townwide vote. Some kind of town vote will either say, yes, we like what you folks did, or no, we don't. Whatever gets accepted by the town will go up to the Vermont legislature, who will then get to decide whether we get to have our charter. And then if the legislature passes it, the governor has to sign it. So this is like the beginning phase of a journey that our town charter will go through. What we want to do tonight is specifically talk about the form of annual town meeting, because it has come up at many of our meetings. People have come to our meetings and said, we want to talk about it. It's also a pretty big part of our charter. What we're hoping to accomplish tonight is to get a sense, first of all, answer any questions you folks may have about what we mean by the form of annual town meeting. But we want to get a sense from you folks what you think the form of annual town meeting should take place, what should take place here in Brattleboro. We're specifically looking at representative town meeting, which is what we currently have, an open form of town meeting, which you don't have to be elected to take part in. And there's also the Australian ballot option, which would just be a townwide vote on everything. We have sort of been focusing more on open town meeting and representative town meeting, just knowing that our community is one that likes to be involved in everything. But we are looking at all three. So what I want to do is really open the floor to you folks to either ask us questions or really tell us what you're thinking. What we're going to try not to do, and this is something that we all do sometimes at our meetings, is we don't want to find a solution to a problem. And I say that, some people like representative town meeting, but they say it's too long. What we don't want to do tonight is, yes, it's too long. How do we make it not so long? The solutions to a problem that you folks might not like will be we'll figure out the solution at another meeting when we know which avenue we're going to take, if that makes sense to you. So feel free to tell us what you don't like, but let's not fix it tonight. And yeah, we're going to try to keep people to 2 minutes. Maya has her fancy dancy signs here just so we don't have a big gong. Yeah, we're like good here. Yeah, and there's a table in the back where we have prepared a couple of sort of packets of information that might be helpful to you. It's also online. If anybody's watching at home, you can go on the town website under the charter page, and there's a background information on the 3 forms of town meetings that I just mentioned: RTM, open town meeting, and Australian ballot. And then we have another sheet that is frequently asked questions about the Charter Commission and what our purpose in life is and how the public's role is. So that's back there too, but it's also online. So I think if there's anybody who wants to start the participation, we would love to hear from you, or if you want us to tell you more information, let us know. And Seth has a microphone, so if you raise your hand, we can get a mic to you. And BCTV is broadcasting this, so we want to use the mic for their purposes as well. And if you could introduce yourself, that would be great too.
Hello, my name is Leland Wilson. I'm a representative of District 8, a resident of District 8. I like the idea and theory of representative town meeting, but I find that the practice of it entirely frustrates me. I see a whole bunch of people running, most of whom I've never heard of. They don't seem to publicize what they're running for or what they feel about anything. And so you come to an election and you're not really sure what you're voting for. You know there's some issues going on at the meeting, but you don't know, what direction these people are going to take it. So I'm more inclined toward the open town meeting because I think people are concerned about the size of the town and whether there's too many people are going to show up. I think in most cases that's not going to be the case. We seem to have fewer people showing up than need to show up. And if too many people show up, we just need to accommodate for that meeting. And I think that's easier than having a situation where you're voting on people you don't know anything about. There's the other alternative of the Australian ballot, which has the problem that it doesn't really involve a congregate discussion. But if I had a choice between representative town meeting and Australian ballot, I would go Australian ballot because I am totally frustrated with the representative.
Hi, I'm Tom Grasso. I'm a representative town meeting member from District 9. This is my second tour of duty as an RTM member. The first one was when we first moved here over 17 years ago. I think the RTM is past its prime in terms of its ability to really represent the interests of the town. I've worked in many different public forums. I'm a public interest environmental lawyer, and there's a lot of other great opportunities out there to involve the public. We don't involve young people. We don't have an inclusive process with the RTM. It tends to be the same people talking over and over again without really representing a broad diversity of views that we have in the town. Excuse me. So I would recommend actually going with a hybrid, which would be an Australian ballot, and you have a public meeting where people are allowed to sign up and have 2 minutes to state their reasons for why they believe in one thing or another. The town budget should not be decided by a very few people. It should be decided by all people in the town, and I think the RTM is doing it a disservice. So I would can the RTM and go to a public ballot as well as a public meeting. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Blodgett, District 7. Sat through the first RTM in person, so it was quite the experience. My wife is a District 7 RTM member. I agree with the last two gentlemen. I think we're beyond an RTM. Based on my other boards I've served on throughout my life, I don't think it's very representative. I think we should have possibly some informational meetings beyond just the RTM informational meeting like we have now. And it's up to people whether they want to come and they want to have debate and they want to get information or not. I was very disappointed by elected members not reading the book, not knowing what was in the financial report, what was in the things, and having to be told, hey, it's in the book that you have right in front of you that we spent a lot of money and a lot of trees on. So I'd like to find a way around that because I think that's not needed. But I think either Australian ballot or all-town meeting, one or the other, is where we need to go. Along with that, some kind of stepped process with informational meetings and debate, maybe before if possible.
Hi, Melissa Swim, District 8. I have been pretty vocal in that I'm not a fan of the representative town meeting format for a couple of reasons. I've lived in Brattleboro my whole life. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to RTM because there hasn't been a lot of things that have concerned me, and I've always really trusted my neighbors. This year was a little bit different with all of the issues that we have going on. I went to caucus for the special RTM meeting in District 8, and I really appreciate the work that everyone did, but it was very disorganized. Some folks were given a minute to talk, some were given 30 seconds. I wrote you guys an email in January all about that frustrating experience. I also thought about, obviously, this year I've been very vocal, but in years prior, I cannot remember one time any representative in my district has come to ask my opinion. And I have representative town meeting folks within spitting distance of my house, down the street, across the next street, in the neighbor. And the only folks that I spoke to this time that asked me were Eli Galbraith, my friend Christina here, and one other person who knew how I felt. So, but this was the first year that had ever been asked of me. I think it's really important that all viewpoints are represented. I think that's why we have such a great select board this time around, because that's happening. And I think the open town meeting, like the rest of the state of Vermont, would really serve us better. I agree with everyone that the RTM, I think, is past its prime.
Hi, Craig Miskovich, District 7. I'll jump on the bandwagon. Yes, RTM is right and dead. It is not representative any longer of this community. And this meeting was a great example of that, right? So there are two things that people talk about with RTM as being an advantage. One is that it's deliberative and it's an opportunity to give feedback to the select board when there's a decision like overturning a budget. I defy you to tell me what the consensus was at that meeting about why the budget was bad. We didn't provide any guidance to the select board whatsoever. Two, it's not representative. There was clear voter choice with respect to the human services budget this year. Clear majority of Brattleboro voters said less than 2% going to the human services budget. That wasn't what representative town meeting chose. So it's not representative. As you know, and I've talked about 1,000 times before in this committee, this was a competitive election, which was extraordinarily rare. 90% of all of the elections in the last 15 years for a representative town meeting were not competitive. It's just a volunteer group, but a volunteer group that has this artificial obstacle between citizens and representative town meeting. So I would strongly recommend that we don't continue a failing process. It's anti-democratic, it doesn't respect the vote of the voters, and it doesn't provide any guidance to the select board anyway when we make a decision. Thank you.
Craig, can I ask you a question? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you said you don't like representative town meeting. Like, do you have a preference? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but is it anything but RTM for you?
I would maximize voter participation, maximize democracy in the community, and have Australian ballot. Because effectively, that's what we had this year. It's not deliberative. It didn't provide any guidance and feedback back to the select board. They are just as confused as if we had had an Australian ballot.
Hi, Susan Belleville, District 8. I did some number crunching. That's mostly my background. I have other skills, but I'll just practice this one tonight. In RTM, there's 150 voting members. That represents less than 1.7% of the eligible voters in the town of Brattleboro. In March of 2022, RTM members that attended the meeting maxed out at 128. That was almost 12 hours of meeting time. In March of 23, 120 members attended, And that was the shortest meeting, not quite the shortest meeting, that only lasted till 6 p.m. This year, well, and probably the most stunning one was when it was on Zoom in 128 members, attended for 12 hours. In this year, 142 members attended for just under 11 hours, just under 12 hours. In March, now the general townwide voting, I'm not used to speaking this way. The townwide meeting vote that's held in March when it's a ballot vote, March of 22, 1,309 people voted, 14% out of 9,305 voters. In March of this year, there were 2,580 people who voted. That's 22% of all eligible voters. That's highly more representative of what we need to get a clear direction from the town of Brattleboro's voters, is Australian ballot.
I just want everyone to know that you're not limited to speaking once. We're going to go through the crowd, and then if everybody wants to speak again, I don't want you to think we're militant up here. So Maya is, but you know.
I've always found you militant, Kate. I'm Chris Hart. I think I'm from District 7. Not sure. Don't know the new numbers. But I was at RTM, and it was a mess. I love the idea of an Australian ballot with information meetings where the people that want to process and talk can do that. I don't believe that in 11 hours anybody's mind was changed from when they walked in to when they walked out and voted. All that talk didn't change anybody's opinion. It may have given some feedback to the select board, but it was all over the place, so who knows? So I really like that, but it being Brattleboro, I support the open town meeting because I'm not sure that Australian ballot's going to go anywhere. I do think our moderator is capable of handling it if it's a big crowd, but I think that our 1955 form of RTM needs to go. It's not serving us for all the reasons you've heard. May I make comments on human services, or is that out of your clean today?
For right now, we'd like to just stick with
Okay.
RTM.
Then I will not.
But you can email.
But I will give them
Yes.
to you
Yes.
because I've written them all out.
Yes.
And thank you very much.
And since Chris brought this up, we do meet twice a month, and we have a schedule that's on the town website, but we'll also take comments anytime at charter@brattleboro.gov.
And just to expand on something Kate said during the introductory remarks too, we've been at this for quite a while, as she said. We're meeting twice a month. We're hoping to finish our work by the middle of the summer so that there can be consideration by the community in the fall and have this ready to go to the legislature for the new session that'll begin next January. So while it's been a long process and while there is still some time available, several months ahead of us, it's getting to be crunch time for you to come in and join us on one of the nights when we meet. Those nights are posted on the town's website, and we'd love to see you come out to those and help us form recommendations on other topics other than town meeting.
A few years ago, after I had run for the board, Spoon Agave, District 8. And if everybody would hold the mic right up to their lips, it would be so much easier for everyone else to hear. A few years ago, after I had run, I did some work, some research. And one of the pieces of that research was I took the whole list of RTM members from what's now District 7, and I looked them up on the grand list and found that 41 of the 42 were homeowners in homes worth an average of $301,000. This was in a town that had the lowest household income in the state. I have been a member since the late 90s, and I remember very well RTM was almost entirely white men, business owners, lawyers, doctors, etc., financiers, downtown people. And that you couldn't have found a more homogeneous, unrepresentative body if you tried. What has happened now, and what brings us here today, is that the body has become representative. It is no longer the bastion of the affluent homeowner. There are now many, many renters, many, many poorer people who have other concerns. And that's causing a lot of strife. We are now in this town, in the county, in the state, in the country. We're now in the battle, the haves against the have-nots. We are represented much more equally now at RTM than we ever have been.
Hi, my name's Taylor Dunn. I'm in District 8. My husband has been an RTM member for 3 years, and I've watched them online. I ran for RTM this time around, but I didn't get in. I want to push back at what Spoon said, because I don't think that RTM is representative at all of the town. I think that was actually very clear during the special town meeting that was held. And also over this last town meeting, and apologies if somebody has already said this, but we had some very clear data from the voters of the town. And some of that data was absolutely disregarded by the small faction of representatives at the meeting. And I find it infuriating to live in a community where my voice is not being heard, and I'm also paying outlandish taxes. And I'm not represented. So I just really feel like we're in a situation where democracy is not represented in this town. And that's been very, very clear to me over the last year. I also want to say, I don't know, I'm not sure if Australian ballot or open town meeting which one would be better. I think I want to say that I love the idea of people talking and about issues. I think that's awesome. I think that's a really cool reason to live here, and one of the reasons why I like living here. But I think that there should be opportunities for forums that are fact-based, because when I watched the open town meeting, I was kind of appalled too by just people kind of saying opinions as if they were fact, which I find, looking at Facebook is terrible, right? I've deleted it, I'm done. But to kind of see that playing out in town meeting was really disturbing. Okay.
Oh, hi, I'm Janet, and I'm in District 7. I totally agree. I don't think it's representational at all. I was for me to choose who I was going to vote for meant I went online, I was looking up names, I judged based on careers, which is ridiculous. I had very few data points. And even if I had all the data points in the world and I voted for you to go and represent me, I would know what you did. You could stand up and vote in ways that I personally don't find, helpful for the town. So in terms of being a representational, it's not, and it's not democracy. I can't follow up on anything. I just have to vote blindly, which is ludicrous. I vote for the Australian ballot. I hadn't realized what it was until I came tonight. I think it's awesome. Totally vote for that if I voted.
Hi, I'm Tessa Anders from District 9. I don't actually have a strong or definitive opinion at this point about which of the three options we should go with. I do think that if we move toward more issues being on Australian ballot, that we need to be really thoughtful as a community about how we share information and how we get the word out about where information is located and how people can access it. Because I know it's there, so this is no criticism of folks in the town government. Everything really is available online. The meetings are all public, but I was a first-time RTM member this year, and in preparation for that, I took it seriously that I knew I needed to have more information than I typically do about the town budget and the town proceedings. And so I, in addition to the informational meeting for the RTM and the District 9 one that was here upstairs, it also meant that I went back and I watched a bunch of the select board meetings and looked up other information that I honestly don't typically. And so I do, if I had just voted on the same things on Australian ballot, I don't think I would have had the same information. And so I just wonder about what are the most effective ways for getting that information to lots of different people around town who have different, come from different demographics, have sort of different media sources, neighbors, friends, et cetera. And I think that's an important thing to consider with Australian ballot is how we share information if that's the direction that we go.
Hi, Christina Cheyanye, District 8 RTM member. And I was thinking about the other 6,000 voters that didn't show up on March 4th and how they feel and if they feel like they're being represented by their neighbors in RTM who might talk to them and there's 6,000 voters out there who are, for one reason or another, disenfranchised and did not show up. And to talk about just what the 2,500 people who showed up voted for, and even that, just a fraction of that, and saying that it's an outrage because a fraction of the fraction of the fraction of the people who showed up said this thing, and that's not how RTM people voted. It's a lot of people that are not being represented. So I'm wondering, do those 6,000 people change things a lot, or are the 150 voting members of RTM really representative of those 6,000? I can see how you don't think they're representative of the 2,000 people who are. What's the opposite of being disenfranchised? Franchised. I would say that probably those franchised people are not representative of the 6,000 disenfranchised people, and that we have a better chance of representing those disenfranchised people by being RTM members who go and talk to those 6,000 members, but that does involve a lot more participation as an RTM rep and as a resident. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Helena Leschuk. I live in District 9, but I work for BCTV right over there. I have worked at BCTV for 5 years. This was my 5th RTM that I sat through every second of. And with my BCTV hat on, I am very scared of our capacity to cover Brattleboro's representative town meeting if it leaves the current format. We serve 8 other towns that all meet on the first Tuesday in March at the same time. We are a staff of 11 people. 4 of us are full-time. We only have, we have cameras. It's easy enough to buy a camera. We can do that, no problem. But getting staff, it makes me a little afraid. And we really do not at all want the transparency, the integrity. We don't want any of that to suffer at all. We want to be there for every single stupid second of Rep Town meeting. We want to make sure it's on everyone's TVs and that everyone feels heard and represented. That aside, also as a resident of Brattleboro, I do have to say that, some things I'm hearing, I get a little confused, when we have RTM 150 members and one person brings up Facebook. We have 2,000 people in a room. You're going to have 20 more times of people bringing up Facebook, the minutia of the things that annoy us, I worry will expound largely as we open up the voting body and thus the vocal body. I think I also see, sorry, just 5 more seconds because of where I sit. You know, I watch municipal meetings literally every day, 40 hours a week. I'm watching municipal meetings. I am also concerned that the civil involvement is at an all-time low. And I think that just the general knowledge of how to be involved at a civic level is just dying. And it is not RTM's job. It's not the select board's job. It's not the town's job. It's our job to find the way to be heard, to find the people to answer our questions, or to just ask, where do I go? Ask us. We will tell you. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for listening.
And well, I just want to say one thing quickly. Thank you to BCTV because they are broadcasting this tonight live on TV and on YouTube.
I also just want to note that though most towns have open town meeting on town meeting day, the first Tuesday of March, we do not have to have it that day. We could pick a different day.
David Levenbach, District 9. I'll take, this will be my first bite at the apple. In terms of representation, all of the RTM members' email addresses, I think phone numbers, are available online. I will say that I see people in my neighborhood, which is only a part of District 9, fairly regularly and do talk with them about issues. One option, which I realize you don't want to hear tonight, but let me give it to you, is the possibility of dividing the 3 districts into more sub-districts where people have neighbors around that they're more likely to see and talk to. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll say this with a certain amount of pride, Bob Osier and I started 4 years ago having a district forum for anyone to attend. We actually had this year the biggest attendance we'd ever had. We did one we started with one about a week before town meeting when we knew what the issues were and the people to give them information and also hear whatever opinions they had. And then this past year, for obvious reasons, we decided to have one early in November or middle of November when the budget came out so that we could hear what people had to say. So I've noticed that District 7 also had a forum this spring, and I think those are things that should be done by all of the districts. And so that's it. I'll take another bite later. Thank you.
Georgia Morgan, District 8. I've been a town meeting member for about 10 years. And when I first started in 2015, it was all old people, really old people. There were nobody in their 50s. It was all 60, 70, 80-year-old people. Well, you didn't make any noise. I want to say that I did not know I was coming to a lynching, but why has representative town meeting elections not been competitive in the past? Partly because there's the prospect of an 8 to 12 hour meeting. Not everybody wants to come to that. Not everybody can afford the time to come to that. Not everybody has that much stamina. The problem with a open town meeting is going to be the same thing. All the people that do not have the stamina for a 12-hour meeting are going to be disenfranchised. Representative town meeting allows their voices to be heard. And as was mentioned, if you want to talk to a representative in your district, it's easy enough to find them. Even if you don't know them, they're going to be willing to talk to you.
Rick Sullivan, District 9. The mechanics of this, of RTM, to me, are absurd. You have 3 districts. It's about, what, 40, 45 people for each? And as a voter, you're supposed to look at a ballot, though it's staggered for the years, but you're supposed to look and pick 45 people to represent you in some way. To me, that's crazy. How everyone's talking about meeting with their reps and everything, but how are you going to manage 45, as a voter, how are you going to manage 45 people? It's crazy. It's just, you don't have that. We have representatives in state government. It's much smaller. You have a more direct thing that they're accountable. In the end, also, the final vote, there's no accountability for how people vote, because it's just a yay or nay. So it's 75 to 62 or 72 to 43 or whatever. So how could you ever, as a voter, look at any of those people or know the people in your district, how they voted? It's unknown. And so I think that's unfair. It should be better. It would be better to have open town meeting. And I also like that. The idea of the hybrid thing is pretty enticing also, but I would go for open town meeting.
Randy Blodgett, District 7. I just wanted to point, I liked a couple of the points people made about the analytics of the voting. And it's even worse if you really dig down into all of them, because obviously everybody has the right to vote for 15 on RTM or not to vote for all 15 choices. And everybody had a different vote. There was no resemblance of masses voting for everyone. And even for moderator, if you look at some of the votes, there was very few. So I don't know, that just compounds all the issues I mentioned before, where, the more and more I'm listening to everybody, I don't see how we manage a town meeting based on all the reasons in the 50s when it was decided not to have one. I think it really has to be an Australian ballot. And what we need to work on at the meetings, and I'll try and come, is how do we lead into that to have informational meetings and the chance for people to give debate? And from that point, hopefully it's public knowledge. They can go online somewhere, and that 10 or 12 hours is replaced with a few meetings that hopefully are only a couple hours each so more people can come. But I think 29% isn't representative. If you go back to everything that's on the website of the government page, hey, the only time we have any kind of a turnout close to 50% is pretty much the presidential years. Otherwise, it's 20-some%, maybe 30%. And to me, that's just, for important topics we're dealing with in this town right now, it's not acceptable. And I really, the divisiveness, I just wish we could get past that. Because it's, like Agave said, it's them, have not. Like, let's be all Brattleborians. Let's not be this divisive. It's got to end to get somewhere. Thank you.
Ken Fay, District 8, RTM member, first year. First time I've ever experienced anything like this. And I thought it was interesting. We elect 4 or 5 select people. And to me, this is a happy median, 150 instead of 9,000. And the fact, as Spoon says, my phone number and my email was listed. I got no calls or no emails. Going door to door, that's a 1950 deal. I don't like people coming to my door. I like reaching out to find out on my time, not having them come out to me. So that's, and I had something else, and I think I've forgotten it. Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Franks, RTM District 9. I really like the idea of a hybrid model. You have a town deliberative process with an Australian ballot. I was thrilled to see, I wasn't thrilled with the wording of the votes, but I was thrilled to see a bunch of articles on the March 4 meeting so we could actually try and see what people were thinking. We have different interpretations, but we tried. And I think we can do, I was at a friend of mine does a project called Knit Democracy Together. And she happened to come down. I've known she's done this for years, and I wasn't paying attention. And I went to a presentation Saturday in Keene, and they talked about citizens' assemblies, a deliberative process that is both fact-based, supported by experts, curated. And I think we could develop a hybrid here that gives us information, that gets us involvement, and gives us clear direction. And right now, I don't, as someone else said, I don't think we have any direction on what the select board members here, whom I pity, are going to have to try and get to a budget with. Good luck. That's about enough for me for now. Thank you. I'll rephrase. Australian ballot with a deliberative process, a deliberative educational process in front of it, and an open town meeting is a good part of that.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Charter Revision, for this meeting. I was just listening to everybody was saying. Oh, Gary Stroud, District 8 Chair, thank you. I felt the same way every one of you did. When I came from New York, they have, council members? And they represent the boroughs. One council member. I came up here and I heard RTM, representatives, what's that? And then how many people represent each district? And I was saying to myself, okay, well, that's something that might be interesting to do. And oh, by the way, Spoon, I did the history lesson. It was landowners who ran RTM. And then we came a long way after that. So basically the landowners. And now where we're at now, there's a lot more ridership, a lot more people interested. And I've always been out there and open to anybody and anyone who had questions about RTM, what it did. And I got the answers back to them like that. Whatever it is that they needed to get that information to be involved. But my two questions are, one, not just with RTM, but with a lot of the committee members and the committees that we have. Every time we have public participation, the committees that I'm on, is any public participation? We have how many people in the town of Brattleboro? How many show up for public participation? Okay. That being said, okay, how many registered voters in the town of Brattleboro? 9,000. You got 9,000 registered voters. We're going to need a place to put these 9,000 people. If you think about it, because if these people come out and they want to have, just like with the school, and have a meeting, which I hear what Craig's saying. I mean, that's like in New York, they all come out, but we don't have a Jacob Javits Center. We don't have, maybe Home Depot or something to have, but that's just my thought to take people time to think about. And I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Davis, District 9. I have been a town meeting member from the time I was younger, pretty consistently. I used to attend regularly school budget meetings in February. And if you want to see a much larger budget passed with a tiny, tiny number of people, and attempts were made to improve the participation there that never worked. The only time we would get a big crowd is if there was a particular class that was being cut at the high school and a big crowd came out. That was the only thing that brought public participation. One thing about RTM is you develop commitment over time and deeper knowledge of the town. I always tell people one reason to be on RTM is you learn a lot about Brattleboro. People make a multi-year commitment. It's a group of people over the years who have tackled solid waste, parking garages, human services. I could go on and on from year to year and have an institutional memory from year to year. This year, there were more candidates for RTM than open seats. That was a very healthy development, and I think it says that people really do want to get more involved. And someone said there was no real meaningful feedback. I think voting down a budget with a 12% tax increase was a form of feedback. The discussion over those hours was wide-ranging on all of the competing needs in our town, and I think it was a civil conversation, and it was detailed, and it was by people that knew a process, were informed about Robert's rules and how to have that in-depth discussion. If I was on the select board watching the meeting the other day, I would have received quite a few ideas about how to try to shape the future of Brattleboro. I do think special town meeting rules could be reformed. This year, the caucus system, people were sort of encouraged to come and get into the caucuses who maybe had a possibly a preconceived notion about how to vote, and I think that should have been an informational meeting first with the existing town meeting rather than a kind of a stuffed meeting on one hot topic issue. Thank you very much for listening. I love hearing all these ideas, and it's good to hear criticism.
Hi, Melissa Swim, District 8. I really just had one. Sitting in this room, there already feels like there's a little of this us versus them that Spoon brought up. And that bothered me more than anything over this election season, because I was one of those us versus them people till I took the time to talk to people who thought differently than me, like my friend Christina, like Isaac, who I'm very proud that you are on the select board because you did the work. He knocked on doors. I'm happy to reach out to my reps, but I think if you're going to make the commitment to do it, then you also need to put yourself out there and talk to your neighbors and knock on doors and call people. And we didn't have one of those. I'm glad 7 and 9 had those meetings. District 8 didn't have a meeting like that, didn't have an informational meeting. It just feels like, it felt like to me, the 3 districts all kind of ran differently. And that was a little bit upsetting. I feel like it needs to be more streamlined. The other thing I wanted to say is that, yes, there are a lot of folks who may be in a higher income bracket that own land. I am like about 70% of people in Brattleboro, which is I am lower middle class to middle class. I work 50 hours a week. These things, a 12% tax increase is a big deal to me. So to be able to have a voice in talking about that is important. There are a lot of people like myself that sit square in the middle, and they're not well represented in RTM, in my opinion. So I just feel like that open town meeting idea at least gives you an opportunity. If you want to come out and speak and be heard, you have that opportunity. And I do appreciate the hybrid idea too as well. But I think we need to stop talking about, I think we need to stop us versus theming us and, really come up with something that works for everyone, because we all live here, we all love Brattleboro, and that's why we're here.
Chris Hart, District 7, I just have a quick note for you. The length of the meeting was brought up and the day and time. At one point in my illustrious career, I worked for the town of Amherst, Mass., which is certainly has its controversies and is larger. And they had town meeting every night and it went as long as it needed. It went 3 weeks, 7 to 9:30 to 10, but you signed up for it. You knew it was happening. And so there are ways to do this. There are ways to structure this. And I trust that you will look into those.
David Miner, District 7. Question I have, and maybe Kate, this is outside of the scope, would be RTM has a number of different committees which supports the process in the town. And without getting into any of them, there would have to be consideration as to what they provide.
Yes, we recognize that. And we have a big, long list of whatever way we go, things that we have to discuss. And that's one of them on the list.
Yes. It's true, the baby hasn't spoken. Arthur Davis, District 8. A couple things as I was thinking about, you want to talk? Yeah. Well, I guess the first things I want to say are actually are just things that I asked around and found out what some other people think so this is not necessarily my opinions, but I think they were really illuminating to me. So some things that I heard talking to people recently are that some people I talked to felt like an open town meeting would have a better ability potentially to have a wider breadth of participants. I think I think one of the great things about representative town meeting, which Andy Davis, who I am related to, talked about, which is that people make a multi-year commitment. And I think, I used to live in a town that also had open town meeting, and I'm generally more prepared to come to Brattleboro representative town meeting than I was to go to that meeting. In some ways, because I felt like I was elected to go, and it was, I kind of prepared to do so. But I do think that, as I think other people have spoken about, I think there's a real benefit to trying to get as wide a swath of people in town as we can. And then the other thing I wanted to say, it's now gone from my head. So if I think of it, I'll get another chance later.
Hi, Craig Muscovich, District 7. I was thinking the vote to install town meeting was in 1955. That was 70 years ago. To vote in that at that time, you had to be 18. That means anyone who voted on that would be 88 years old. I don't know that anyone in this room participated in that vote. There's probably very, very few people in Brattleboro who participated in a vote in 1955 to abdicate everyone's participation, direct participation in democracy in Brattleboro. And we've never gone back, right? We've never gone back and asked the voters again if they thought that was a good idea. No one in this room made the decision to vote for representative town meeting. Any vote, in order to be a legitimate vote of this community, has to be a vote not of RTM, but of the voters of the town, whether they want to continue to abdicate their role in direct democracy in this community. Going to representative town meeting is asking the fox whether he wants to continue to guard the hen house. We need to go to a town-wide vote on this issue, a binding decision of the voters of this town, whether they want to continue to abdicate their role in direct democracy. Thank you.
Leland Wilson again. I just wanted to make a comment about the suggestion earlier that the 2,000 people who voted on March 4th were not representative of the voting population. And so we're talking apples and oranges. They are not intended to be representative. They are the electorate. The people who showed up and voted and wanted to vote on that day were the electorate, and they were the direct voters, not representatives. So to compare them to representatives and the percentages is just nonsense. Now, after listening to all the comments tonight, I would like to change my previous opinion and say that I definitely favor the Australian ballot, primarily because I've listened to all these discussions about the length of the meetings, both as representative and as it might be an open town meeting, and it's beginning to sound more and more like an episode of some Survivor show. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, people should feel good about voting, not like they've got to endure some battle on the battlefield. So that's my vote, and that's my final comment. Thank you.
Can I ask you one quick question? You're not a town meeting representative.
I am
right?
not.
Okay. I just wondered if you were one of the people that had to sit in the metal folding chair for 12 hours, but you didn't.
No, I went to a representative town meeting when I wasn't a representative and sat there and was equally frustrated, but anyway.
David Lovebox, District 9, second bite of the apple. I rather like RTM, but I very much oppose the idea of Australian ballot because there is no deliberation there. The notion that there would be, prior to an Australian ballot, one or more, quote, information sessions. Information is where the select board and the administration tells people what their rationale is. That's not the same thing as expressions of opinion. So, you know, the deliberation, the opportunity for citizens to express their positions is something that information session would have to be renamed. So it's not a matter of information being given to us, but a matter of citizens giving information to each other and perhaps the select board. I will say that if there was no clear guidance given to the select board and the administration on at RTM, there were certainly hints of what people had to say and how they felt. Australian ballot simply says yes or no, and there's no reasoning given for those expressions of opinion. So I rather like RTM. I would be okay with an open town meeting. I would certainly attend, but I strongly oppose the idea of Australian ballot. Thank you.
Spoon Agave, District 8. I'm sorry that of all the opinions, only twice have I heard the word democracy. I almost think we should first start with a meeting to see if the people of this town want a democracy. A democracy has, I can't go into something this big in a few seconds, but it has elements, certain elements that make it what it is. And most everybody that has been speaking here has been naming those elements. That everybody has an equal vote, that people participate. Democracy cannot exist without participation, and that participation is only effective when it is an informed participation. And you heard that again and again when people said people don't read the books, they just give opinions, not facts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the one way we can avoid bloodshed in this town and everywhere else is by strengthening our democracy. And I think by studying democracy and what its elements are, we can make changes to either RTM or any other system that would make for a stronger democracy.
Thanks. Tom Grasso, District 9 again. First of all, I didn't get a chance to say thank you to the commission for the time that you guys are putting into this, because it's a lot of work, so thank you for that. Maybe just to say, I think to me the most important thing is to think about what's the most inclusive, forward-thinking approach to what our voting system is going to look like in this town. And what I really found difficult to understand was where are all the young people? They don't have to be voters to necessarily be included in the discussions. And I think there's a way to do that and to allow people who can vote to vote. So I really encourage you to have principles of inclusion, diversity, and an understanding that the 50 years or 70 years from now that we're proud of the system that we create. And just throw everything out and start from scratch, I think would be the way to do it. Thank you.
Ken Fay, District 8 again. One thing what really struck me as odd was that the League of Women Voters did profiles of all the RTM members, and the majority didn't fill out the profile. And that struck me as very, very odd. I filled out mine, but for other people I was wanted to vote for, I didn't see that. But that was one thing. The other thing, I really thought there was a consensus at RTM that the people were very, very extremely disappointed with the select board, with the current select board, for various reasons. There may have been one faction thinking this way, one faction thinking that way, but I think it was pretty much a majority rule that there was strong disappointment in the select board. The third thing is the vote for the human services. That poll, when you have 4 items or you have 3 choices below one, I'm not a pollster, but I didn't really think that was a pure, unadulterated question. I think there was a lean toward getting an answer. But anyway, thank you. And thank you for your good work.
Susan Belleville, District 8. So I am an RTM member, and I talk to people in my district, and I cast my vote based on their feedback, but I didn't represent everybody in my district, and that's an unfair position that we are in as RTM members. We can only represent a faction that kind of represents our point of view and how we vote. The more fair way to do it is to give everyone in town the right to vote on every single article that comes before the town and the budget. It's totally unfair to put that burden on such a small percentage of the actual registered voters in the town of Brattleboro. I really feel Australian ballot is the way to go because it is most representative and gives everyone the opportunity who is a registered voter to vote, rather than just a 1.7% of all the registered voters in the town of Brattleboro.
Hi, Alyssa Arroyo, District 9. I'm in complete agreement with the woman who just spoke. It is so difficult to be able to represent every single person in your district. I have had the opportunity to have conversations with people in my close neighborhoods, and when I say it's divided, it is divided down the middle. There was an article during the meeting of which I abstained from the vote, and I actually became physically ill afterwards. I had to remove myself from the meeting, and I was extremely emotional because I was so divided. I wanted to do right by everyone who entrusted me with this responsibility. And I completely agree with the woman over there, and I'm sorry I can't remember your name offhand. Pardon? Sue Belleville. Sue Belleville, thank you. But yes, I just wanted to state that. It was a very, very difficult meeting, and some people, hey, they're there for the fight, but I was just, you could cut that tension with a knife in that room. I felt it, and I'm sure you all felt it. And I think everybody kind of wants to talk about, diversity, let's, mix everything up. But I think a lot of people are really into diversity and inclusion when it's with like-minded people. So let's just keep that in mind.
Christina Shayanye, District 8, Town Meeting Rep. Okay, so I'm going to try this again. So these numbers that Sue printed out show me that when we go to Australian ballot and we open it up to town-wide vote, 80% of our voters are not showing up and voting. So how is that more democracy, more everyone having a vote when 80% of people did not say how they felt about it one way or the other? And like someone pointed out, when you go to the ballot box, it's one person, one vote. You have no responsibility to represent anyone but yourself. So who's representing that 80% of registered voters? When I talk to a lot of them, and they don't vote because, and some people who I've talked to have said they do not vote because there's no one to vote for, because they've given up hope, because trust has been eroded in the process, because they don't feel represented by that ballot anyway. So having a town meeting where we have representatives, it's a lot of pressure on those 150 people. That's why it takes a certain type, but that does, in theory, represent, I'd say, in theory, it represents 100%, because and not just the registered voters, but I'm talking theory, people. I don't know why you're looking at me so weird. Democracy is a failing experiment, but I'm just saying how democracy is supposed to work. So if it just does not make sense to me that if we have the evidence of what an Australian ballot does, only 20% of people show up. And you're only showing up for yourselves, so 80% are not being represented. Does that make sense?
Oh, I really want this one. Hi, I'm Janet from District 7. People might show up if they thought that their vote counted. That's it. I mean, people might show up, especially the controversial ordinance. People would have shown up if they thought that their vote counted, because people were, as divided as we all are, really opinionated. And I'll bet we would have gotten a reasonable showing. And even if we don't, we would have gotten, people would have been animated by that. Anyway, that's it.
Hi again, Taylor Dunn, District 8. I just want to, going off of this, the last couple of people that spoke, perhaps we could take this as a moment and, try to encourage people to vote and to participate so that they do feel heard. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to a lot of my neighbors also in my district, and a lot of them I've heard over and over that they don't feel represented at the meeting. So, middle-minded people, I think we're kind of there. But we could take it as a moment to try to get people to vote and get people engaged. Maybe forum isn't the right word, but offering different opportunities for people to participate, debate, learn about issues, just like they should do to be a responsible citizen in this country, right? I think it would be awesome if we did that here and then it spilled out, right? I don't want to be all rainbows and whatever, but we could take an opportunity to really do that and make people feel and get more people to vote. And I do think quite a few people did turn out, especially for the special meeting and for this last meeting. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
I feel like Columbo. Just one more question. Gary Stroud, District 8 Chair. During the elections last year, when we were voting for not just our state and local legislators, select board, we voted for our presidencies, that was a ballot. Correct me if I'm wrong. So everybody had a choice to choose who they wanted to vote for. It's similar in a way too. I sent out 50 emails today in my district. How many, where's Andy Davis? How many town reps in each district? Put on the district. Okay, so that being said, how many RTM representatives here right now? Okay. Each district representing their district, that's a total of what? How many you counted to the head count? About what, 20 here? So we're missing. So would it make that difference? I'm just trying to get an idea. If we went to Australian, because you're going to vote what you want anyway, or if we went to stay with RTM and try to create a more open RTM to have meetings, because I felt just like everybody else when I first started, because meeting once a year was like, okay, we're having like a, once a year, jamboree and that's it. Then everybody goes home and nobody sees each other. The fact of the matter is now, if you know your district chair people, call them. Emails out there. I'm up and down the street. You'll see me at Price Shop or everywhere. Ask the question. I'm all the places, and that's the thing with me too, with the committees. And I have to agree with Craig and this gentleman back here. It's the same faces every night. Where's the new people? Where are the other people in the young? Getting them involved, and that's what's important. So I just want people to take time to sit back. Either way you look at this, it's about ridership. Thank you.
Ronnie Byrne, District 9. I have been a representative town meeting member for probably, I don't know, 9 or I think I'm going into maybe my 10th year now. When we were debating about where we were going to move to, we came from out of state, and one of the reasons we chose to be in Vermont, and we've been here for about 30 years now, was because of this wonderful concept that they had called town meeting. Wow! True democracy, hands-on. How cool is that? The first town we moved to, we did have that sort of town meeting. Came to Brattleboro. It's like, okay, now they have RTM. Let's give that a shot. Over the years, as an RTM rep, I go into the meeting with this really big, high sense of optimism. And every year, now, going especially over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, I come out of that meeting feeling like just crap. Like, what am I doing here? This, especially this last year, we've seen the town is becoming divided. We've seen a level of politics that is more worthy of metropolitan Boston or Connecticut or New York than Vermont. This town meeting thing has become divisive, and for that reason, and in the name of democracy, I vote for Australian ballot. Thank you.
Melissa Swim, District 8. I just have one quick thing to say. As we're talking about these representative bodies and people being divided, I feel like I can't stop thinking about all the folks that were put into our Senate and Congress who can't get anything done because it is so us versus them. And that's what I am seeing happening here, and it makes me sick. This is my hometown that I grew up in. I do not remember a time, and admittedly, I have probably, before I had an epiphany that people have to work together, I definitely was as divisive. I definitely wasn't listening to people. We have to listen to each other. We have to be respectful of each other. Even if we don't agree, we're not bad people. We're all here caring about Brattleboro. And I feel like at least in an open town meeting or with an Australian ballot, you're able to make your voice heard. You have the opportunity to do that. What we are seeing on a national level, hopefully not this year, on our state level, and definitely here is that we are split down the middle. That's got to stop. And I think that, we should just look to what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now and think about how not effective that representative government is. Thanks.
Thank you. Andrew Davis, District 9, RTM. There are articles online if you're interested. If you type in Robert Gannett, Brattleboro Town Meeting, you'll find some histories going back to the 50s, and I reviewed them recently. And much of the discussion is the same as tonight. Town meeting, we used to have a town hall down where the Key Bank is, down here. And 1954 was the first time the town voted to move to representative town meeting. Bob Gannett was a big pusher of that. He had moved here from Massachusetts, where they have a more, the representative town meeting in many Massachusetts towns is a legislature. That's not true in Vermont. It can't be. The representative town meeting is not a legislature. It's an advisory body, a sample of the public. But Bob, that passed in 1954. I was born that year. And then it took until 1960 to get the state laws, the enabling laws passed at the legislature to allow this to happen. At the last town meeting in Brattleboro, down at the old town meeting, town hall, 700 people came because there was a proposed airport that was going to be proposed to be built in Hinsdale, a hot topic issue. One of the things people wanted to move to with the RTM was more stability of participation and not hot topic issues, 700 people come, no hot topic, very few people come. And that was the goal. I'm not saying we have to stick with that, but I think the history is really important to go back and look at it, and you'll find that many of the issues have not changed. And I think just because, one last point, because something was passed 70 years ago, well, our U.S. Constitution was passed a couple of hundred years ago, but that's not an argument to ignore it.
Hi, I'm Diane Parton, not sure what district. I'm one of the people who's pitifully non-participatory. And a lot of that has to do with things we've talked about here. The whole idea of having this huge list of people you don't know anything about to vote for. Every now and then I'll recognize someone that I would like to see as a representative and I'll vote for them, but quite often I just end up not voting. I've been to town meeting a couple of times and it's just huge. We're talking about the 6 hours, 11 hours, however many hours. People are all sitting there. Really big group of people. David said something that started to make me think, why not find a way to break it up a little bit? Make it 3 district meetings instead of one huge town meeting and try to make it a more manageable size, then followed by an Australian ballot, because I really think it's a great idea with as huge and diverse a town as we have to give people that vote. But I think it's important for the vote to be informed, but it's really just not practical for a lot of people to go and sit through that big and that long a meeting. So that might be something to consider.
Randy Blodgett, District 7. I just wanted to update what I first talked about based on hearing a few different people's opinions. And I do like the last speaker's opinion, and I don't know if that's doable to have 3 district meetings with a, Spoon, I want it not just informational, but also debate. That's what I first said when I got up and spoke. So the hybrid would be, we have an informational meeting or meetings with debate on each of the articles to inform as many people as we can. It's online. Maybe there's minutes that with AI now you can put the minutes online if people want to read it versus audio visually. And then you have an Australian ballot. I think that gives the people the opportunity. We can argue all day whether 20% is representative or 30% is representative or whatever it is. We're never going to get all 9,000 and some people out to vote. I'm not naive enough to think that. But I think this way, like you've started and other people have mentioned, I would be all in for that. I don't know legally where we're at, what, can or cannot be approved, but I think having informational debate, more than one meeting, Australian ballot is how I would like to go.
Just to answer the question of what we legally can or cannot do, the exciting part about it, somebody said about rainbows before. I just want to say I think it's okay for us to think about rainbows and get excited about this conversation we're having about how to better govern our town. I think that we're naming a lot of very serious issues, and it's also good when we can bring some excitement to the idea of improving how we together govern our town. So that's what this process is all about. If we didn't adopt something different, like what our predecessors adopted that was different was representative town meeting, we're in the process of considering whether to stick with that or to adopt something else that's different from the state's basic statute related to town meeting. If we didn't adopt something different in our charter, we would have town meeting in the same manner that everybody else has it in accordance with the state statute. But we get the opportunity in this charter process to actually name how we think we can do it better, how it'll serve our community better. And then we have to get that adopted, we have to get it approved up at the state legislature. So depending on how far we vary from what feels normal to the powers that be up in Montpelier, that may be the next challenge for us to actually get the thing that we think is going to be great to get approved. But one step at a time. What we're here tonight hearing from you is different ideas about how we can do it better. And what we're going to be working on is bringing forward a recommendation to the community of where we land on that question. So we're, I guess, presumptuous. I'm going to speak for the six of us and say we're excited about that. We get excited about this work and get together twice a month because it's all about trying to think of the ways in which together as a community we can land in a better place.
Susan Belleville, District 8. Another interesting fact which I'd like to bring up is that over the last 4 years, the number of people who are elected RTM members who actually showed up for the RTM meeting varied by 20 to 40 people who failed to show to represent their districts. That's also an important factor here, that those people chose not to go and they were elected to represent their district and did not attend the RTM meetings. That's a very important thing when we're talking about going to a different form or keeping the same form. Those voices that in their districts were not heard because those people chose not to attend. Still Australian ballot, thank you.
Hey, can I ask one quick thing to Susan Belleville? Will you be willing to share with us the numbers that you worked so hard putting together? Is that your only copy? Oh. Good, thank you.
Aaron Smith, District 7. So I came into this meeting and I was thinking, I was pretty staunch on keeping RTM, but after listening and really, digesting what I hear, I think Randy Blodgett's idea of having multiple informational meetings with discussion and then having Australian ballot would give us the biggest opportunity for the most participation by the voter. But what we got to remember here is we can't absolve everybody who's of voting age of their personal responsibility to learn the issues, participate, and vote. I mean, we're all talking about, democracy not working, and it only works if everybody participates.
Tom Franks, District 9. As long as we're talking rainbows and unicorns, I don't know how many of you remember the first ATMs And the first time I had an ATM card, and I went to it, and I put my card in, and it gave me money back. I said, damn, if these things can give me money, why can't we vote with them every day? I'm a little, participatory myself. But we do not need to limit our options. And there are towns in Vermont that have open town meetings on Australian ballot. It's already a model. We don't have to build that up. And if we're not really wackadoodle, it shouldn't be a problem at the state level. And just a little, people keep talking about something that's really important for democracy. Everyone gets to vote. That makes democracy. Everyone has a vote. Whether they choose to or not, that's their prerogative. Everybody has information. And one of the pieces that's kind of lost, because I took civics a long time ago and they don't have it anymore, is there is a working knowledge of how democracy is supposed to work and a civic engagement that we have lost. We have an opportunity to build it again as we work towards our new, if we choose to, I hope we do, RTM model. I think there's tremendous opportunity, and I'll mention democracy again. There's so many groups trying to work. Oh, thank you, Maya. There's so many groups trying to work to build democracy. We don't have to make any of this up. The citizen assemblies groups, Democracy Forward, The Project, there are a host of them. And now, go ahead, Maya. Thank you very much for your time. One last theory, saying that, oh, never mind, I won't even go there. I do research and statistics, and I can't. Never mind. Thank you.
Hi, Gemma Seymour, Representative Town Meeting Member for District 8. Probably will not surprise people that I have a lot of things to say about this, but I will try and keep this very brief. One of the things that I'm not hearing at all tonight is which other large towns in Vermont of comparable size to Brattleboro have open town meeting or town-wide secret ballots? Because I think that's very relevant. Brattleboro is the 6th largest municipality in Vermont. We have representative town meeting for a very good reason. Every argument against representative municipal government is also an argument against representative government at every level of government. I mean, at what point do we say, oh, well, we should just get rid of the electoral college and we should have a popular election for president. We should have a popular election for every member of Senate. We should have a popular election for every member of the House. There's a reason we have representative town government, and simply opening everything up to everyone is not guaranteed to give us a better result. In fact, it's almost guaranteed to make sure that fewer people ever get to have any say, because the channels of communication are definitely going to be manipulated. I've been a professional technology consultant for over 35 years. I specialize in communications. I know better than many people the challenges of getting people to participate, to communicate effectively, and most importantly, respectfully. Representative town meeting has a very great advantage in that it's subject to parliamentary rules. The consequence of that is that not everybody gets to speak, and everybody who wants to speak doesn't necessarily get to say everything they have to say. I've heard a lot of criticisms about what happened, and I just want to say I had a lot of things to say at RTM that I didn't get to say because someone called the question and a supermajority shut down debate. I will leave it there at that, but I just want to reiterate that I think we need to very much talk about what other towns are facing the same problems that we face here in Brattleboro in regards to the structure of our municipal government.
None. We're it.
I don't want to speak. I'm not going to speak off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody else has a clearer recollection than I did. We have that information. We've been looking at that kind of information, and there's a mix. Generally speaking, the larger towns have Australian ballot and the smaller towns have town meeting, but it's not linear. And so, again, it's been important to us as the Charter Commission to have this engagement and some other engagement we're going to be talking about here before we leave tonight to make sure that we get broad input from the community around how do we want to do it here. We don't want to just be governed by what we see decisions being made in other larger communities around the state.
Georgia Morgan, District 8. I just want to say that I am very opposed to a Australian ballot format, because no matter how much discussion and debate and informational sessions you offer, you can't force people to go to them, you can't force people to listen, and you risk a very uninformed electorate, which cannot be good for the town.
Taylor Dunn, District 8 again. I don't see you can't expect everybody to go to these informational sessions. Of course not, right? Like, I at home will be cooking dinner and like watching a select board meeting, okay? And that's like how I can participate, because I have kids and I can't or child, and cannot like go to these things all the time. But I do talk to my neighbors, and when I go to information sessions and I view select board meetings and I get information, I talk to my neighbors and we talk and we have a discussion. So I don't see how having that option and continuing to talk to our community is like, a bad option. I think that's good. And I think that's kind of similar to what we're doing now, theoretically. But yet people can actually go and vote.
I'm going to take democracy back one step further. The reason for democracy is something we all know. When you stop talking, you start fighting. This is the history of humanity. It's the adult looking at the child, sternly saying something and suddenly stopping and saying, "Are you listening?" It's everything hinges on a community's ability, a family, friends, any group, being able to satisfactorily talk to one another. And we don't have the mechanisms in this town or most any other place publicly to have those kinds of satisfactory, meaningful discussions because of the way we organize them. Voting is a win-lose. Voting is not looking for the best decision for everybody. It is looking for winners and losers. And because of that, we do not have good processes for talking to each other. We have an issue in this town. It's been mentioned 10,000 times. The divide. The town is divided. Over what? We have to talk about that, and it's not going to be an easy discussion. We don't have a process for talking about that. And because we don't talk about that, it's going to be a big problem. We can't solve any of the other problems around it.
Thanks a bunch. Arthur Davis, District 8. And Spoon, thanks for that kind of helped me gel what I was going to say, so thank you. I think there's a lot of great reasons to hearing people's thoughts tonight has been really great for me, and I feel like has given me a lot of reasons why a lot of different options that have been presented could be really great. I think my experience as a representative town meeting member in Brattleboro, and also previously when I lived in another town going to open town meeting, Sorry about that. Yes. Do you want to say anything? No. That's dangerous. One of the things that's been really, I think, the most valuable thing, and I think people have touched on it, is the ability to go into the meeting having one opinion and hear other people's opinions and, logics and research that they've done, conversations that they've had, present those. And sometimes I change my mind and I vote a different way than the way I thought I was going to when I came in. I have felt that I feel like there's less of that at representative town meeting than there used to be, and maybe it's related to just you don't like that idea. Just to some of the way we have conversations and the way political conversations have been going. But I think that thinking about that idea as we try to make a new system is something that's really important to me. Thanks.
Hi, Ken Fay again. Somebody mentioned the controversial ordinance that was passed. And when I tried to caucus in to the special meeting, I had asked people what they thought of it. And a couple people said, "What ordinance? The parking one?" And also, along those lines, the show of hands who are members here, I mean, it almost becomes an echo chamber in a way. I mean, the committee is hearing people, but we're all active. Even the people who aren't members are active. And that isn't the majority of Brattleboroians. So I just, it's a conundrum. I don't know the answer, to get more people involved, but I think that'll help the divisiveness to get more, it's counterintuitive, but you get more people involved, you get more, I think you will coalesce a little more. But thanks again for what you're doing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Gemma Seymour, representative for District 8 again. I just wanted to say that for the record, I support RTM. I think it should continue more or less as it is. I do think that the process can be improved. And I'm sorry, I didn't get your name before. Melissa, what you said before about the fact that there was no district meeting for District 8, I have to say that as a freshman RTM member, I really kind of thought that the process was going to be a whole lot more structured than it was, and it really wasn't. And I think that we really need to make investments in improving that. Obviously there are ways that we can make RTM better. And as I said, I'm a technology consultant, and I know the challenges of getting communications to actually happen. We're going to need to invest money in that, and money, time, personnel, and resources to maintain some sort of communication system that isn't controlled by Mark Zuckerberg or Paul Belagore or whatever other billionaire decides that he wants to buy a media platform and become the default public square.
Oh, I said I wasn't going to say anything, but now I'm saying something. Hi, I'm Ian Goodnow. I'm the proud rep for District 9 and an ex officio member of Representative Town Meeting. So I just wanted two very brief things. One, fully committed to helping out the committee whenever you make your decision and it goes up to the next step. We've approved a couple of town charters already since I've been in Montpelier. And I've had a conversation with the Legislative Council who does that work, and I'm happy to get them engaged with you at whatever step of the process makes sense. And then my only other thing, I guess I had two other things. One, of course, politicians gonna talk. So the two things are, I think the discussion around these different possible structures, I bring the same excitement. I think there are benefits and there are cons to all of them. and you're going to have to sort of make a call at some point. How you make that decision is going to be up to you guys. But when you're talking about representation, I think that's something that I sit with a lot. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing to be a rep and not poll every single person in your district. It's not possible. And so at some point, you're going to have to sort of make a call and decide how you make that decision. And the balance on this is that you are elected. And so if people don't like how you're doing that representation, they can put somebody else in the seat. So I just heard a lot of discussion about that, and I just wanted to bring my thoughts on that. And then I think the very last thing, as you guys are considering what to do, is just to keep close to heart the question of what are the barriers to whatever system you're going to put in place, right? It's no one's fault that they have busy lives and families and things, and to force somebody to jump through a bunch of hoops on whatever that is to be able to exercise their democratic right to vote. We should try to limit those as much as we can so that we can encourage as much participation as possible. Thank you.
Randy Blodgett, District 7. I'd like to take what you said, and I'll volunteer if you'll volunteer. And let's have some more discussion and talk about this throughout the year. Let's not just have one meeting. These meetings are great. And how many people have shown up, ladies and gentlemen, to your other meetings twice a month? A handful. Right. So, I challenge, we have a few select board members here. We have some state representatives here. How do we make this happen? I'm sure, Mr. Goodnow would like to have some meetings like this. And I know they have meetings here once in a while in the library. How many people show up? So maybe if it's on topic and we promote it, like several people in communications, I ran my own business for 20 years, plus consulting now and media communications and audiovisual stuff. And let's try it. Let's add that into this. I don't know if there's a way, but once a quarter, once something, but put the material out a month ahead. Because if you get 1% response, like what I'm talking about, how we know, we've done it. How poor the response is by mail or email or whatever. But let's try something different. Let's add that to the mix. Let's get people involved. And then we can't say we didn't try to get them involved. If they still don't get involved, then like you said, democracy is democracy.
We have a comment up here. Hold on.
Quick plug, because people are looking at their watches and they're going to be leaving. There is the opportunity to provide us your email address, and we will add you to the warning that comes out before our meeting, because that's the publicly warned meeting. But also, it's town newsletter. Get on that email that comes out once a month. We're also on there. I know other meetings are warned there too. Hitting them in 3-4 different ways is what you have to do. I've seen ours on social media. Thank you to our town communications director. And help amplify what you're interested in, right? That's how folks will know. So thank you to those who bump what they're interested in. But please leave your email address if you want. Email charter@at brattleboro.gov, and that can add you on the list as well. So,
Andrew Davis, District 9 again. Some new information, perhaps. A couple of years ago on RTM, we voted in. There was a resolution put forward on the floor to have what was called a steering committee, and it was the image I eventually got in my mind was of a VW with about 40 people in it, all holding the steering wheel. But let me tell you, it was boisterous, it was freewheeling, and there were many ideas in that for improving representative town meeting that involve some of the things that are being talked about here, district meetings during the year, not just have it all happen in a couple weeks in March. And one of the things, there were still people looking at Massachusetts, where town meeting has a more year-round quality to it. In some towns, they have a committee. The select board does not put forward the articles. Town meeting puts forward the articles. The select board gives them the budget, and the warrant committee puts together the town meeting articles. So we didn't go that far, but we had people on that committee that really wanted to do your job. And there was a division in that committee between people that wanted to improve the functioning of RTM and people that wanted to recreate Brattleboro town government. And that proved to be irreconcilable, and we ended up dissolving. But I don't think that idea should just be thrown out. It could be reformed. The way you got on that committee was you held up your hand or made a phone call. So we had everybody who had any interest on that. And it could have been more an elected, a more democratic representative type of process. But we did try that, and some of those ideas are still floating around, even here tonight. So I think another option is to improve representative town meeting. Thank you.
Before everybody starts, we have one person who hasn't spoken. We'll let the one person who hasn't spoken in the back speak, and then I'll make my speech on how you can be involved more, so nobody leave.
Kate, we have one other person who'd like to speak.
I was just going to say something. Tara O'Brien, District 8. I also happen to work at the library here. And if some of you in the room, I know, were here when the Secretary of State came last year and unveiled the Civic Health Index. And Vermont just happens to have the second ranking in the country for attending public meetings, and there was a dialogue that night amongst people, and the town manager was here, some of the select board member was here, but a lot of the public participation and the feedback that we got were that people wanted more opportunities to come together and have access to people who have perceived power in this town. Lots of dialogues, that's not contentious. So if there are opportunities, I will echo what's been said about opportunities for the different districts to come together. Put that in the charter. The districts are obliged to host those, however they be, so that there are opportunities for people to meet each other and not debate, but just get together and learn what's going on in the town. My 2 cents.
Hi, David Turneau, District 8. Sorry I was late, I had to work late. I had 2 things that I really like about either town meeting, open town meeting, or RTM that I hadn't necessarily heard. Sorry if I missed it. First off, I love that we have the ability to amend articles. That Australian ballot does not give us that ability to make any amendments anywhere. It's either you want what's on the ballot or you don't. And we have lots of amendments that get offered. Sometimes we take them, sometimes we don't in town meeting, but that's a process that I absolutely adore, and it's one of my favorite things about having that form of government. Another thing that hit me, that one I just lost. So I'm going to go to the next one. Sorry. I've also wondered if it would be possible, because there is issues with representation in RTM, if it would be possible to have more smaller districts, because I notice sometimes one district, which is a very large district, most people live on the same street. And so it's one of those things of like, could we have it smaller so that I do have the opportunity to know more of the people that I'm representing, rather than trying to find all these other people to poll. If we had smaller districts, it might be easier for us to actually represent the people in our districts. Please don't get Hillary mad at me, because I know that would be a lot of work for her. I lost the other one, so I will cede my time.
Hi, Liz McLaughlin, Brattleboro Select Board. I just want to answer that question. Hillary tried very hard to equalize the population in the 3 districts so that geographically they have different sizes, but the population is as equal as she could manage.
Before everybody goes, first I want, on behalf of all of us, to thank you so much for coming. As we said, we meet twice a month, and this is the largest crowd we've ever seen. So Thank you. And our next meeting is Thursday, April 3rd at 6:15 in the Select Board Meeting Room if anyone would like to attend, or we are available on Zoom. We do have a page on the town website that you can visit at any time. And you can also email us at charter@brattleboro.gov, and we actually like to get emails and get your input. On the RTM issue, we have a survey that we are launching right now. You folks are the first to know the exciting news. And it's online. It's on our homepage or our webpage on the brattleboro.gov. There's also a QR code right here. Paper copies for people that don't like to go online are available here at the library and also over at the senior center. And then you can leave them here after you fill them out. This is not a binding survey, so I don't want anyone to get excited that this is, this is one tool that we have that we want to really get to what people are thinking. So we're going to take the information we received tonight. We have had a number of meetings about RTM prior to this that we got a lot of input from. We're going to take that. We'll take the survey. We're going to talk again on Thursday about where we go. Do we need to have more meetings? What our process going forward is going to be to decide what do we do with this. So we really want you to keep engaged. Tell people, come to our meetings, tell people to email us, whatever you can do to help us.
People to fill out the survey.
Yeah, tell people to fill out the survey. So the process for us is still in the we're going to figure it out stage. So we really, really appreciate your coming here tonight. Where the rest of the charter is concerned, we're still going through that as well. So come to our meetings. We always have the agenda. It's online, and you can see the issues that we're talking about, because there is going to come a time when we're going to have a draft and everybody in town is going to get to look at it. So the more that we can get input as we're going, as opposed to when it's done, and the more input, the better. And as Peter said, our goal is to get our work done over the summer so we can bring it to some form of vote by the town in the fall, so that we can get it to the legislature so that they can begin considering it in January of 2026, because it could be a long process. We want to get the charter going. I want to say a special thank you to BCTV for broadcasting this tonight for us. I want to say a super special thank you to everybody at the library, because we come and invade their space and we love their space. So thank you to everybody at the library for making this possible. I want to say thanks Seth Thomas for doing his great microphone work tonight. He didn't expect to do this until he showed up. And, just thank you for participating. We really, really hope it. It's our town, and the six of us don't want to make these decisions alone. So we appreciate your coming. And again, stay in touch with us. We will stay in touch with you. And thank you. I don't know if anyone else on the commission has anything else.
Thank you. There are 5 of us.
Did I say 6? What did I say? Yeah, 6. We get... Oh. We're together so often we don't know who we are anymore. So thank you again so much, and stay engaged. Thank you.